Are you a business owner stuck in fear, doubt, and worry about what the marketplace will look like in the future? Then this show is for you. Strap on your seatbelt and get ready to disrupt and innovate. Here's your host, Lisa Levy.
Today, I have a very special guest joining me, Wes Lemos. He's an innovative entrepreneur and CEO known for fueling business growth with AI-powered SaaS solutions. With a wealth of experience as a veteran investor steering tech startups, he's proven himself as a successful growth hacker, shaping the digital marketing landscape. Wes's journey in the business world began with founding these SaaS companies, including his current role with Roll Digital. He's an astute leader and a strategic planner and has propelled these ventures to great heights. His extensive knowledge and passion for entrepreneurship make him a sought-after speaker and advisor. With a background in industrial engineering, he combines technical know-how with business acumen to create innovative solutions for today's digital landscape. As we dive into an insightful conversation today with Wes, he's going to share insights on how we can harness the power of AI, drive business growth, and his experiences as a serial entrepreneur. Wes, thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Wes, I can do that quick intro that gives everybody a little bit of context about who you are, but would you start with sharing your story? It means so much more when you share it than when I do.
I appreciate that intro. That was very flattering. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I mean, we all have our journeys that got us to where we are today, and they're unique to each of us. My background, I was a lover of technology as a kid in high school, and remember sending my first email out when it was brand new back in the days in the 90s. So when I sent out my first one, and I kind of said, this is awesome. This is exciting. I'm kind of excited how technology is changing in this space. I started my first business that took off and did well when I was in college, actually. And that was a fun experience after a couple other entrepreneurship, I think, is something that we have in our DNA. That's what I'm convinced of today. There's some of us that just like building our own things, like doing our own things, steering our own ships. And that's been always my path. And in college, I started my first tech startup. It was kind of a blog talking about small cap stocks. And that was a lot of fun. There wasn't that much information about smaller companies, penny stocks, bulletin board stocks, penny sheet stocks. And we started writing about them and kind of featuring these companies that people didn't know about. And companies got excited to be featured by my blog. Back in the day, it was called Stock of the Month. And that just ended up taking off. And within about 3 years of building that, I had almost 40 employees. At our peak, we had our net worth was probably $30 to $40 million. And when I was still in college, I was a young kid back then. But I just saw there's so much that can be done with using the internet, with using technology, with using the exposure that's available through digital means for helping companies. And so I never looked back. So I've never really had a real job. I've always just been an entrepreneur and followed the space of technology primarily ever since then. And interestingly enough, like that was more than 20 years ago, right? When I was in college. I have some of my partners today and my team today still is from that first company. And they've continued with me in different iterations of business models that I've done over the last 2 decades. But that's kind of gotten to me to where I am today. I'm happy to share about any of those details in the middle there too that you want.
We'll dig into some of that, but I love, and it's interesting because mindset is very different for everybody. That you're wired and you were an entrepreneur, and that just right. It started your first company in college, and you never looked back. Right? Yeah. You are the living embodiment of being that serial entrepreneur. I'm the reluctant entrepreneur. Right? I had a whole career in corporate and did all of those things until I was just fed up and said, there's got to be a better way. And the fear of going out on my own initially was so huge. And 14 years into the future, right? I am now totally unemployable and could never go back to that idea of that mindset of working for somebody else. But how we get there in our journeys, I think, is really interesting because I still have a hard time using the word entrepreneur in description of who I am and what I do. And it is the living embodiment of who you are and what you do. I love the story, right? You started in college, the technology in the stock market. So, for those people who are listening who are old enough to remember, prior to the internet, right, it was printed in the newspaper every day, and you would check what was going on with the stocks and read through all of that. So being young and harnessing technology to drive real profit and build a business in the penny stocks, that was highly disruptive and innovative from
Yeah.
the age of a college student.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It was because the internet was kind of in the beginnings. Everyone was using dial-up modems. I didn't even own a computer. I was actually just working from the library and school computers at the time when I was building the website. And there was, just a couple things were popping up. Yahoo Finance was new. Some of these places were new to find out about stocks and investing. And so we started one, and we actually, like, from the beginning, my passion was a combination of technology, using technology however I could, and helping connect people to ideas that they wouldn't find otherwise. And that those two things have been kind of the path that I've gone down ever since that time. And technology wise, which was kind of neat, is we built even an online, we called it, I forget the name of it right now, but it was a dummy stock investing business where you could put $10,000 in a fake money, and you could practice investing in stocks, and you could see. So we actually had several universities that were using our system in their business classes to teach students how to invest, when to sell, when to buy, how to put in, kind of orders in the market, out of the market to buy or sell stocks. And then they would train their class on these things using our software that we built for them. By the time I finished that company in college, I had about 17 different websites that had different kind of goals and objectives, but they were all related around using the internet to kind of showcase stocks, how to use disruptive technology as best I can. We are pioneers in the space. I know everyone likes to say that, and I know I hear that all the time, but I really think we kind of were. Before the word blog was around, I feel like that's what we were doing. We had a newsletter with 250,000 people signed up for it. And so every time we pushed something new, we had a big audience that could learn about something that they didn't know about, and they learned about it through our newsletters back then. And yeah, a lot of things were changing fast, and we had to be adaptive always, because the marketplace in a lot of these cutting edge areas, it changes very quickly. And what's okay today and what works today quickly can change based on new legislation, new laws. And that's what happened in that space for us. The SEC came through, and they noticed that a lot of people were doing kind of more pump and dump scams with internet stocks. I don't know, for people that are familiar with this stuff, back in the late 90s, it was really easy for you to take a company that wasn't too heard about, kind of say almost false news filings about them that would get a lot of interest in them, and then eventually they could liquidate their stock positions. Well, different story, different time. And SEC changed the rules. We were adapted to it, and I don't know, we grew. So much to share about. Then September 11th hit 2001, and that caused a big downside to that business model, and I had to change a few times. And the path kept on going, but that entrepreneurship stuff still stuck with me for sure.
And so in that, right, in the entrepreneurship, right, there, the need to adapt to the changing times, right? Nothing is for certain. And so as your businesses have grown, and you've already identified that there's a theme that you've seen in taking the technology and connecting it with people,
Yes.
right? And making that connection between things. So fast forward to kind of where you are today and what you're doing now. What does that look like?
Yeah, I appreciate that. My fallback business is always going to be web development, because that's just an easy thing for me to do. So I have that as kind of a backdrop of all my businesses, is I can go to a company and ask them what they need and what needs to be built and how they can use technology, and we could probably build that for them. One thing that I recommend is, through the course of all these different relationships and seasons and businesses, you build a core group of people that you trust. And that's stuck with me. So some of my coders have been working with me now for like 14 years and 13 years. And they're just amazing people that no matter what business I have, they'll be part of that new business model. So I have a web development company, but web development in general, like as an entrepreneur, it doesn't really satisfy your soul, because it's just selling hours for dollars. And that's a hard business to scale like that. So if I get a 200-hour project, I can put a markup on that, but at the end, I probably will spend 400 hours of work, even though it's 200 hours. And I'd never really figured out how to succeed at scaling a service-based business. And that's, some people are great at that. You have to be very organized. So in the mix of that, I kind of thought, like, okay, what can I do? What product could I build that could help all of my clients today? So we started looking at how they were using different themes of marketing, email marketing, cold calling, advertising. Are they using review sites well? And one area that we found that was a common flaw that most companies weren't taking well advantage of was social media, but specifically LinkedIn marketing. And we thought, okay, how can we help them in that space? And so we kind of looked at all the different tools that were available, and we noticed that, hey, this might be a market that we could tap into well and build something in this space that's probably just as good, if not better, than the competition today. And so we kind of focused on building that. And so we launched Sales Connector in 2018, and we got our first few clients in 2019. And that's been my biggest endeavor at this point. It's a SaaS-based solution to helping people use LinkedIn in a more efficient fashion.
So the audience that's listening should be pretty familiar with LinkedIn. Most of these business owners, right? We live and die in LinkedIn. So what is it that Sales Connector is doing or helping them do that is game changing?
Yeah. LinkedIn is such a powerful network right now. And like you have it's one of the big top 3-4 networks out there. And for businesses, it's probably the top one. Most of us are using LinkedIn. We understand the power of LinkedIn, and we understand that it's a valuable asset for our business. But kind of sometimes I use an analogy like our brains in a given month, we're at best using 5 to 10% of our brain capacity. And I don't know the scientific side behind that one, but I'm just using that as my analogy. But the same thing kind of, I think, works inside of LinkedIn. Even though we understand that it's very valuable, probably if you look back at the last 30 days of how well we've used LinkedIn, we'd agree that we probably used about 5%, 10% of what we could have done inside of LinkedIn's platform. With Sales Connector, it triggers another software that connects to your LinkedIn account, and we're able to help you utilize closer to 80, 90% of what you could be doing inside of LinkedIn to get the goals and objectives that you have. We're always very strategic with all of our clients, and every client has their own goals and their own target and their own, what they're trying to get ROI from. But once we come up with a strategy and a solution for them, we're able to use LinkedIn in a more effective fashion for them. It does a lot of the tasks that are meticulous inside LinkedIn. We can automate some of those. And then for the other tasks, we can help you personalize all of your conversations, organize your conversations, come up with suggestions for what to say, when to say it, set up reminders for all of your contacts on LinkedIn. It's just an incredible tool for helping you kind of foster all of the power that you could inside LinkedIn and utilize it to your advantage.
And one of the nice things I think that I understand about how the platform works is, yes, it's automation and you're staging and you're doing all of this, but it is still you, the user, setting up the tone, the voice, and all of the pieces of it. So it's actually still very authentic, as opposed to so many things. I think we've all received the LinkedIn mail spam where it's just that, meticulous, that machine that's hitting us with, I saw, your profile and we should know each other. Stop, please just stop. Please, if you're listening and you're using that tool set, please stop doing it. But you're creating a way to help an individual truly own their profile and the experience inside of that platform.
Yeah. It's really important to be personal and relationship first focused. I feel like that's something we've seen, and we have numbers to back that up. When you're using LinkedIn to kind of just be a pitch kind of scenario where you can connect and then pitch to people, the percentages are really low, and the likelihood of you getting banned inside of LinkedIn are much higher because people are going to be complaining and marking you down as spam. So we kind of coach and teach people on how to use it as getting relationships first for yourself. And that usually starts by after you connect to somebody, looking through their profile, finding some interesting facts, asking them some really good questions about them first. And we try to mirror like what you'd want to do in a real human relationship. If you're walking up to somebody, instead of quickly talking about yourself when you introduce yourself to them, it's more like finding something about the other person that you can ask first. And that's just been something that people do in the real world successfully for just meeting people at networking events and things like that. And we try to mirror that and coach people how to do that. And our software gives us a lot of tools. We have right now, I think, 5 different enrichment services we use. So before you write a message to somebody, we actually are able to tap into 5 different APIs to pull a lot of data that talks about their business, that talks about their previous jobs, that talks about some nuances to who they are, their personality. We're able to tap into some of these things. So when you write them a message, you have a lot of really good information that you can pull from to kind of craft a nice personal message that has to do with them. And we've seen so much success for people that are trying to do this with other tools without being coached well, having very little success. And then
Mhm.
once they start working with us and our team, they start seeing like, dozens, scores of meetings being booked per month, and they're quality meetings too, with the right target audience that they're going for.
And that's, the business, right? That's what we all want as we create and build and nurture relationships. Yes, human interaction is an important thing, but if we're doing this in LinkedIn, we are trying to grow our businesses. So with this platform, right, what is the future goal? What is it that you're building towards? What is the impact you're looking to actually make?
So we do fit in the space that's called sales enablement. So we're enabling sales teams, but it's much broader than that. And sometimes I struggle as a founder of trying to put us in a small box. I always want to be, no, but I can do more and this and that. And yeah, you kind of want to see it continue to go in many directions as opposed to one targeted direction. At one point, maybe we'll just stick with like sales teams and things like that. But I feel like branding and influence and growing like a whole business from all levels, from the C level down to the entry level, there's a big advantage of taking better advantage of LinkedIn for your business. But we definitely, like, when we're talking about disruption technologies, one of the current ones that's pretty significant is artificial intelligence, right? We've been seeing 2023 is the year where we've seen ChatGPT and all these other models pop up of how to use AI in new ways inside business. And that's been something fun for my team and myself to kind of figure out how can we utilize that better with what we're already doing in LinkedIn. Since we built our platform in 2018 and it's launched in 2019, we relied on cutting edge technology back then, but it's different today. And so now we're seeing this ability to tap into machine learning. So every time someone writes us a message, our software tries to understand the tonality of what they're saying, and it puts it into specific buckets of their intention. And then based on their intention, our software is able to kind of like give you the guidelines for saying this is an appropriate response to this person at this stage. And I feel like that's really helpful. It's like it's making it like bumpers when you're bowling, to make sure that you're not really kind of going off the track and you're not doing something too soon or too early. The software will kind of guide you and say, okay, this person's just very light friendly. Therefore, let's just keep the conversation very short, simple. Ask them these are kind of some good questions you could ask them at this stage. And then when they're engaged, there's a different set of questions you can work with. And when they're interested in your services, there's a different set. And when they're ready to have a meeting with you, you can talk to them in a different way. You can start being much more pitchy or explain more about your product better. So our software helps guide people in that. I really kind of see that our tool, we have about 1,000 clients today. Our goal is to continue to grow that number and just to help out more businesses. And like I said earlier, like my first business was trying to help technology, help people, connect to people, find out about new things. That's kind of exactly what I'm doing today. And that's the beauty of what gives me passion about what I'm doing is we get to work with amazing companies and amazing businesses, understand their strategy and help them connect to other amazing businesses and people. And there's magic when you're able to connect two good people to each other and they're able to have a meeting with an open mind. A lot of great things come out of that. We have so many fun examples of businesses that have had some tremendous success in connecting to other businesses, and great outcomes can come from that.
And again, right, you've just reiterated through the whole thing, right? The idea, right? You are an enabling tool set, you are sales enablement, but it is about making that connection between two businesses, between actual real people that develop a relationship, a connection. And that's where, the magic happens. And that's the really cool stuff. The magic is human and it always will be human. As you build, and this is not your first business, right? There's always challenges. There are always roadblocks. There are things that happen, a pandemic, an economic downturn, right? There are things that happen that are out there. As you've matured Sales Connector, what are some of those challenges that you've faced and how are some ways that you've overcome them?
I mean, we've seen a few pretty big changes, right, in the last 4 years, the pandemic being one, and that one was scary, and we didn't know how far it was going to hit or what it was going to impact. But in some ways, in the beginning, at least for my business, it cut down the budget for most of my clients, and I was scared there for a bit. But quickly, people noticed they needed to double down and focus on online means for marketing and sales more so than the face-to-face means that they were in the past. And that actually helped grow and scale and propel the business that we're in today, which is kind of neat. We're seeing another one right now I think Google has changed a little bit their policies for spam, and it's making it much easier for companies to be marked as spam than before. We'd have to look up the exact numbers, but it's a very strict policy before you get your domain blocked and your email blocked and be put sent as spam. So I think we're going to see a continued influx of people trying to use networks like LinkedIn all the more because it's outside of those type of things. In our case, we're so dependent on these platforms like LinkedIn, which is scary to some degree because they do have the control over, like, if they change how their limits are, how people can connect to each other, or how people can conversate, that does impact my business directly. And I feel like we're always trying to be very aware of what's allowed, what's best practices, what you can and can't do inside their platform, at what pace makes sense, and that we're still operating like under their best practices and best policies. So that's there. And the continued use of AI has been fun for us too. I feel like that's something that we're going to see disrupting in all areas and aspects. So we've been incorporating that into our software. I feel like we have some of the most robust settings right now to incorporate your tonality, your business, your goals, your objectives. We have so many questions that all tie in to helping guide conversations to write copy, with you. That is something that you would say yourself. And oftentimes you just click one little button and it'll pre-populate what to say at any given time. But it's really amazing how well it works. But yeah, we all don't know what tomorrow has in store for us. And we just have to be adaptable. I think that's where it's important to have a team around you that you really can trust. And I think at still the stage I am, my business is about 30 employees. So, but we're still small and nimble. And I like that. That's something I appreciate about my business. A couple times there were some big shifts that happened. Like one time, all of our servers went down with our hosting company, and we had like 4 days of outage. And that was tough. You're kind
Ouch.
of, yes.
Yeah.
All the things that you kind of glorify about having a SaaS business, about like, oh, I just have to build one product and I can keep 1,000 clients happy, as opposed to a service business, which you can't do that. But the downside of that is that if your one service goes down, everybody's mad. Like you're stopping there, and that's where you shine though, in those moments where things are tough. I feel like that's where your team stands out. You're proud of everybody, how they operate in those situations. People like that are communicating with our customers, people that are communicating with the service providers, people that are resetting up our servers in different platforms in the short amount of time. And yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty happy with what we have. I don't know what tomorrow has, but I do have a team that I trust a lot. And
And
I
let's
feel
talk
like,
about your team for a second, because you've mentioned several times, right, that some of these people have been with you for a decade, right?
yes,
Coders, and in that particular role,
yeah,
having that kind of loyalty and commitment it's exceptional, it's special, and it's unique. So there's something about how you're running the business that is remarkable. So what is it? How did you build this team?
those are good questions. Thanks for asking those. I mean, this is more unique to me, and maybe it'll apply to some of your audience. I'm not too sure, but I really try like to understand, business is here, but relationships are bigger, and those will outlast any business that you're in. And being able to kind of operate out of that, and it's not a matter of like focusing on the business first. It's really focusing on those relationships first that will kind of create longevity. And even if it's not in your current business, it's for the course of your career. It'll make a lot more success that way. And so all the people that I work with, I try to like just to be a really good friend that cares about them first as best I can. And even if that means that they get a job offer in another company that's significantly better than what I can offer them today, I'm going to be the first one to cheer for them to kind of take that job offer and move to that next place. But hopefully that we have a good taste in each other's mouths in that one, so that while they're there, they'll still be thinking of maybe ways to help or point people back in my way, one way or another. So my developers, my background is engineering a little bit and building things. So I do value anyone who can code and build things online is pretty special. And over the course of lots of different businesses and different ideas, these few coders that I have today that are full-time for me, they're based primarily in Europe. I've gotten a chance to travel to visit them, for one of them, I actually bought an apartment for her in Ukraine. The other one, that my Portugal coder, he came and lived with me for 3 months, here in the USA. And so there's a lot of loyalty that's built in this process. And that kind of will expand beyond where you're at to new ideas and new companies too. So yeah, I would encourage, any one of your listeners to kind of focus on like, what can you do in this holiday season? What can you do, moving forward as a business, just to really help build that relationship, kind of pour into your employees to where they feel that they're being seen and known and cared for inside your business organization.
Thank you for taking a few minutes and digging into that, because I think it is really important to remember people. And when we grow, and there are points in time when growth gets crazy and the number of people when you go from 30 to 300, that's a very scary time, and we tend to lose track of the individuals in that. But that idea of staying close and understanding the individuals and their priorities and their goals and their hopes and their dreams, right? That is one of the true advantages that we have as entrepreneurs, that the CEOs of the Fortune 500 will never reconnect with, and are so detached from that. But entrepreneurs run our economy. And I was talking about this in a conversation earlier, right? The Fortune 500 represents less than 5% of the total number of businesses, billions and billions of dollars in money, but actually very few businesses, right? We entrepreneurs who are out there building and taking care of things from the ground up, we make the biggest impact. And so thank you for sharing and reminding all of us the importance of our people, because that's where it starts and it ends, right? Our employees and our customers, it's all how we treat people.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that and pointing that out too. Yeah, I feel like that's been kind of my mode of operation ever since my first business in college. It's just been about like building a team that you like. And the thing that's nice about that too is it's yes, you have a business, but the team that you're with, let's say, I feel like I could be doing almost anything with my current team, even if we're, out like cleaning a yard or something like that. I'm gonna have a good day because they're good people, and you kind of want to surround yourself with people you like, and people that care, and people that you connect with, and then you can grow a business on top of that, and makes the day-to-day great. And so even if days are rainy and the economy changes and things change, like you're in this car with people, this bus that you want to be surrounded with anyways, and that you trust and that are loyal to you and that you're loyal to them. And it really helps. But my problem, and being a little transparent on some of these things like that, I still don't have solves for. The biggest company I've ever managed has probably gotten to a little bit over 40 employees. Once it kind of goes to that past 40 to like that 100 marker that you mentioned before, it requires a different type of leadership role and a different type of management that's much more process oriented, that's much more like operating procedures. It's much more organized and structured. And I feel like I fail a little bit at that one. So one of my personal goals for 2024 is to see if I can be finding maybe another CEO or another, COO for my organization to help grow it to that next stage. Because I feel like the potential is there, but I'm admitting that I'm probably not the best guy to get to 100 employees. But to get to 40, I can do that. But too much past that requires like a little bit more of an organized mind that's more process driven, and that's one of my shortcomings that hopefully somebody else can help out with.
Well, right. Congratulations for taking the blinders off and seeing and acknowledging, right, that opportunity for you to fill in. And in my coaching practice, one of the things I would tend to say to somebody at that stage, right, is it's time to play to your strengths. And it is the people in the building and shore up around you with those who can do the other things, and the process orientation and the repeatability and all of the things that then become scale. Yeah, you can bring somebody else in to do that. Absolutely. Wes, I so enjoy having conversations with you and talking about all of the things you've shared with the audience today, right? A great journey of a serial entrepreneur who started your first business while still in college, growing that to, millions of dollars in actual revenue, great success and opportunity to continuously experiment with new things, but with a very specific theme of connecting people through technology to enable them to do more. I appreciate having you here and having that conversation. If people want to learn more about Sales Connector or you, where are the places they should go and look?
Yeah, salesconnector.com is great. And if anyone is kind of interested in hearing more about like our product, we won't be salesy with you, but you can book a demo. And that's always fun for us just to showcase and to be strategic and think through how we could use social media and these different platforms and specifically LinkedIn to help your organization. I'm on LinkedIn, of course, Wes Lemos. You can find me there just by searching for that. I should show up pretty well on that. Yeah, those are the two places. I also have my web development company, Roll Digital. But that one's not really scaling, but it's still something I'm always happy to talk to people about that want to develop anything online, any kind of website, any kind of app, any type of project they want to build. I'm open for discussion about that as well.
Fabulous. And for my audience, you know the rules around here. Don't get left behind. Join me next time.
That's it for today's episode of Disrupt and Innovate. Head over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. Every single week, one lucky listener that posts a review on iTunes will win the grand prize drawing, a $15,000 private VIP day with Lisa Levy. And be sure to head over to disruptandinnovate.com and get your free copy of Lisa's gift. And join us on our next episode.